Coming up, new information in a deadly officer-involved shooting in Fargo. A change in status for US Senator Kevin Cramer, who recently suffered a serious hand injury. And a judge issues a ruling on several laws restricting abortion. Hello and welcome to the Nightly Review. I'm Tom Tucker. We start things off with a look at tonight's headlines. Then a one-on-one conversation with one of the group leaders working to legalize cannabis use in the state of North Dakota. He'll talk about how and why he and his colleagues at New Approach North Dakota are confident that voters will approve the ballot initiative that they're currently promoting. But first, tonight, court documents filed by prosecutors indicate a van traveled toward Fargo police officers before one of the officers fatally shot the man behind the wheel. The documents provide details on what happened last Friday before Officer Adam O'Brien shot the driver, 28-year-old Shane Netterville, who later died at an area hospital. It happened at an apartment complex in the 3400 block of 15th Avenue South. Another man in the van was later arrested, but a third suspect is still on the loose. Much-needed repair work will soon be performed on 32nd Avenue South in Fargo. The City Commission has approved nearly $20 million for the project, which would cover 10 blocks on 32nd. Also, last night, the council voted to eliminate a proposed controversial turn lane from 32nd onto 25th Street. U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer has returned to Washington, D.C. after suffering a severe hand injury. Cramer said he crushed his fingers between two rocks while doing yard work and needed immediate surgery. In a tweet, Cramer said his hand is healing well despite losing the tip of a finger. This is the driver who investigators say caused a deadly rollover crash on I-94 this morning near the Oriska rest area west of Fargo. Investigators say 26-year-old Jamestown resident Wyatt Staylock crashed his truck into the back of a U-Haul trailer being towed by another truck. That second truck rolled, ejecting a 14-year-old girl. The teen and the driver of that truck suffered serious injuries, while a passenger in that truck died from her injuries. Investigators say Staylock left the scene of the crash but was later arrested in Jamestown. He now faces a felony charge of leaving the scene of an accident. Carrington Police Chief Brandon Sola was laid to rest yesterday at the Fargo National Veterans Cemetery. The 36-year-old was also a master sergeant with the North Dakota Air National Guard. Sola was killed June 28th in an off-duty motorcycle crash near West Fargo. He is survived by his wife and 5 children. Now, Sola is one of about 40 people who've died on North Dakota roadways so far this year, including other motorcyclists, bicyclists, and pedestrians. That's according to the state group Vision Zero, whose goal is to reduce the number of roadway fatalities to 0. As of July 2nd, motorcyclists comprised 25% of roadway fatalities in the state, while pedestrians and bicyclists accounted for 10%. Vision Zero wants to remind drivers that motorcyclists and bicyclists are granted the same rights as drivers. Area counseling services continue to struggle in keeping up with demand for people, or rather from people, looking for help with mental health issues.
We serve a couple of rural schools. We're adding more days there because school counselors and administrators are finding that more and more students are having what are medically necessary needs for some mental health support. And
Shauna Erickson Abuzar is the regional program supervisor for the Village Family Service Center. At her location in Moorhead, she says there's currently a 6-week wait list for people seeking services. She also says her office could use the help of 3 additional counselors. Erickson Abuzar says a number of factors are contributing to increased anxiety levels for many people, including issues related to COVID-19, the military conflict in Ukraine, and inflation. The state gymnastics championship is returning to Minot. It has been more than 10 years since the city hosted North Dakota's best on the mats, bars, and beams, and city officials worked with Visit Minot and Rebel Athletics to bring the event back to the Magic City. More than 500 athletes will compete at the Minot State University Dome next March 17th through the 19th. The economic impact for Minot is projected to be about $740,000. In Minnesota, a judge is tossing out several laws restricting abortion in the state. Ramsey County Judge Thomas Gilligan ruled the state's abortion restrictions are unconstitutional. This includes a 24-hour waiting period and requiring providers to inform parents when a minor seeks an abortion. The ruling comes as an increasing number of women from out of state are seeking abortions in Minnesota because of bans in neighboring states, including South Dakota and North Dakota. And the Mayo Clinic is testing for monkeypox in Rochester. The clinic will be conducting up to 10,000 tests each week for the CDC. The testing comes as the agency expands testing capacity this month. We're told 8 monkeypox cases have been confirmed so far in Minnesota. Well, if you haven't done so already, please take a moment to subscribe and hit the bell button below to support our efforts in providing what we think is a better source for news and information on what is happening in the FM Metro. And looking at our weather tonight, there's a lot to like about what we experienced today. Meteorologist Justin Storm was in the Skywatch Weather Center to tell us if the nice conditions will continue.
Thanks, Tom. As we head through the rest of this evening, we'll see temperatures cooling into the 70s. There will be a very slight chance for a couple isolated showers, but favoring east of the Red River. Wind will be out of the west-northwest around 10 to 20, but it'll lighten up to about 5 miles an hour tonight out of the northwest. Mostly clear with a low in the upper 50s. We'll warm back to the lower 80s on Wednesday. Low humidity, mostly sunny, a slight breeze around 5 to 10. Into your Thursday, we'll hang on to lighter winds, but clouds will be pulling in, calling for partly sunny conditions, highs in the upper 80s, with a slight chance for a couple of showers or even a couple thunderstorms into Thursday late afternoon and Thursday evening.
It could happen to you or someone you love. One moment, one diagnosis can change everything. Thankfully, there's a program that helps caring people uplift families through a crisis. Lend a Hand Up, raising financial help and hope through community benefits and online campaigns. A program that boosts generosity so gifts go further. Lend a Hand Up helps you help your neighbors. Learn more and give at lendahandup.org.
Welcome back to the Nightly Review. The topic for tonight's one-on-one conversation is the latest efforts to legalize cannabis use in the state of North Dakota. As reported, the group New Approach North Dakota says they've submitted more than 25,000 petition signatures to the Secretary of State's office to get a cannabis legalization measure on the ballot. Mark Fries is a former police officer who also serves as the treasurer for the advocacy group. He first talked about the apparent success of their petition drive.
It was a pretty big effort. We had a real large group of volunteers, and we had paid collection signature collectors as well. So we had folks across the state, all over the state, collecting signatures, both in a paid and a volunteer capacity. We were collecting on average about 2,000 signatures per week. So in less than 100 days, we overshot our mark by about 10,000 signatures. The Secretary of State requires 15,582 signatures for this to get on the ballot. This morning, the campaign turned in 25,762. So the support has been significant, and I think even better is the folks that were signing the petition were very grateful to do so, and were very supportive. So I think that we've got a good shot of allowing the voters to get this enacted into law in November.
It seems like it took a relatively short period of time for your group to collect the minimum number of signatures to forward to the state. Are you surprised at the level of support?
I'm not. There's a lot that has changed since the last time that this was presented to the voters. There are now 19 states that have legalized use of marijuana by adults over the age of 21. North Dakota would become the 20th. So I would say by the time the next election cycle runs, more than half of the states are going to legalize the use of marijuana by adults. So that has been a significant change. And then the other big change is the way that this ballot initiative was drafted. It is essentially a copy of a bill that was presented in the House of Representatives in North Dakota last session. It was approved by the House. It was defeated in the Senate, but the majority of lawmakers in the House approved it. So we're getting support not only from the public generally, but lawmakers are supporting this type of initiative as well.
So what is the next step now in the process after signatures have been submitted to the state for review?
Yeah, the signatures were turned into the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State and his staff will be reviewing them. They have, I believe it's 35 days under the statute to review them. They do a series of checks to check the accuracy of the signatures. They contact some of the people who have signed them. They verify dates and times that they were signed. Of course, because there's so many signatures, they don't go through each and every one of them, but they will employ the standard procedures that they use to check them. We're confident in the work that our folks have done throughout this. So we've had spot checking as well, and we've had an authentication and a verification system that has been in place all along to vet the signatures as they were coming in as well. So once the Secretary of State has reviewed it, if he approves the ballot language and the signatures, it'll appear on the ballot in November, and then the voters will get to weigh in as to whether we should legalize adult use marijuana in North Dakota.
What would you say to those in the public who might be concerned about potential negatives or the downside associated with cannabis use, such as addictive properties or the impact on cognitive abilities of users?
Yeah, and I share those concerns. I don't have any inclination to use marijuana if it's legalized. I would be very disappointed if my children were using marijuana. I have read a lot of the studies that suggest that there's a correlation between, brain development and the use of marijuana, and that it may be restricted. I think that there are equally and probably more accurate scientific studies that suggest that for adults 21 or over, it doesn't have any severe impacts. I would suggest, as a 20-year criminal law practitioner, and I was a 6-year police officer, the effects of alcohol on the human body and on people are far greater than the effects of marijuana. There is not, to my knowledge, and I've done a lot of research, there's not a single reported death from overdose of marijuana in the history of the country, where daily people are dying from overdoses of alcohol or other substances that are lawful to consume. I would also suggest that we have all sorts of evidence and scientific support for the proposition that we should limit our nicotine intake, our caffeine intake, greasy hamburgers. There are all sorts of things that we should do to be healthy. The point of this really isn't for the government to control decisions that adults make. But with a substance like this, it's time for the government to get out of criminalizing and punishing people for making a choice that you or I may not want to make.
I'd like to thank Mark Fries, the treasurer for the group New Approach North Dakota, for joining me for tonight's one-on-one conversation. If their ballot measure makes the ballot, and if approved by voters, it would, among other things, allow adults 21 and over in the state to possess limited amounts of cannabis and purchase products from registered cannabis businesses in North Dakota. Well, that will do it for this Tuesday night, July 12th, 2022. I'm Tom Tucker. Thanks for watching the Nightly Review.